Welcome to the Mashup.
Tell me whether I'm wrong or right. East or west, up or down, side to side. I sit to stand and fall to fly. Of all of my impulsive plans, pop and lock and salsa dances on demand. I follow leading off the map. Stop the chatter, scream happily.
Absolutely. Can we turn that down a bit?
To the mashup.
Can we turn that down a bit? Can we turn this down?
No, we don't get to turn it down. You're gonna suck it up. Don't hop on so quick.
Do we
really
really need?
I want to listen to the song, Twos.
You know what? That's fine. Give her.
You may proceed.
No, I'm good. Let's get the show started. You got what you wanted for.
Mashup 146. I'm not going to be told what to do, okay? Twos, he comes on first 10 seconds. He knows the song. Every week the song comes on. It's literally tapered to slowly go down. But he wants to hop on in the first 3 seconds instead of just hopping on in like 12 seconds. I don't get it. I'm like, I don't get it. And then you're going to yell?
You never will.
Can we turn it down? Can we turn it down? No, we can't. Let's turn it up. Mashup 146. How's everybody doing? How's Twos doing?
Twos was great until this shit show started.
Yeah, well.
How's Sean?
I'm doing fantastic. That's how I'm doing. All right. How's everybody else doing? Welcome to the Mashup 146. It's Friday morning. I'm feeling pretty good. I get to banter with Twos. I get to mess Twos' day up, which just warms my heart. Just warms it. Because when I texted him last night and said, hey, a couple things, he doesn't text me back. I'm like, are we hosting a show tomorrow or what? No, he's not going to text me back.
In all fairness,
turn down the music. No, we're not doing it.
He calls me this morning. He's like, yeah, I got to call you because you don't text me back.
That's right.
I'm like, what the hell? I open it up. I didn't hit send.
Likely story. Hey, folks.
I literally immediately hit send on it.
You ever had that friend you got plans in the morning to do things, doesn't text you back, and you're like, what is happening here? Feels like a Sean rant this morning. We got a fun show today. We got a fun show. Obviously, over my shoulder you can see Team Canada, and we're gonna talk to somebody who was in the building. It's gonna be some hockey fun this morning. Make sure if you're just tuning in, all right, you like, you share, and change the lyrics to your national anthem. Okay, there you go. I still think a rooster tattoo is still probably my favorite one, but I am curious at what Twos brings on here. So if you're watching X, all you X people out there, give us a retweet. Helps us break through some of the silos. You're on YouTube. Like, share. Facebook, same thing. Rumble. I'm not sure what Rumble do. Rumble, just comment. Throw some stuff out there. I don't know what you can do on Rumble. Me and Rumble have a love-hate relationship.
Hi, Paul.
What else? We got Happy Airborne Friday to Jamie Sinclair and the military boys. You want to start with Coots? Let's start with Coots 6.5, and then we'll bring Cannon in. How's that?
All right. Coots 6.5. Rather than the usual thing, we're going to talk about Pat King. So usually this is the part where we point out how fucked our justice system is. And instead this week, we're going to point out how fucked our justice system is. So he got, the Crown was going for 10 years on this. For no other reason than he had the audacity to stand up to them and tell them that what they were doing was wrong. Because there is no worse crime you can commit in this country
than standing up to the machine.
Yeah.
It is honestly, so Pat King, they write, key organizer of the 2022 convoy protest in downtown Ottawa, got a 3-month conditional sentence on Wednesday after the judge accounted for time already served in jail. He's expected to serve his 90-day period of house arrest in Alberta. It's pretty cool to see Pat King smiling, honestly. Yes. If you've been following anything with this, some of the things he's commented on, shared, some of his testimony, pretty heartbreaking to see a guy in a pretty rough mental state. So I think, he's ready to move on with his life is kind of what I'd read. People can comment different. Maybe they've seen something different. Pretty cool to see him smiling. I wish he wasn't getting anything. I think a lot of us do. But 90 days house arrest, time served, when the justice system was searching for throwing the book, the kitchen sink,
10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, you can literally kill multiple people in this country and get less time than going to Ottawa and saying, this needs to fucking stop.
Yeah, I agree. Now let's talk. We got a guest in the background.
Yeah, we do.
Normally we're bringing on Jamie Sinclair. We've had a lot of fun with the 34 year military vet. Well, today we're going to bring in Cannon Sinclair, and Cannon, son of Jamie, on the podcast. He was in the building last night for Team Canada beating the U.S. Cannon, thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Now,
we got a lot of time for anybody named Sinclair in this. This particular.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Walk us through it, man. I mean, I watched the game, but you're sitting in the building, and I don't know.
How good were your seats?
Pretty good. Lower bowl, and I think sitting is an understatement. We were standing the entire game, especially in overtime. The ushers were trying to get us to sit down. Our entire section just wouldn't sit down. So it was incredible to say the least.
Were you sitting then with all Canadians, or was like your section a mismatch of everyone?
Mismatch. There were some Swedish guys there that were, I guess, hoping to see their team in the final, which we knew wasn't going to happen. But
that's Scandinavian optimism.
Yeah, that we got Canadian pessimism over here.
This is going to be the year.
Yeah, no, didn't happen. So there were some guys to the left of me that were from Edmonton, and there were some guys in front of me that were from Quebec. So I mean, I know we have our differences with them, but at the end of the game we were all high-fiving, so it doesn't matter.
I assume you mean Edmonton.
Absolutely. As an Oilers fan, I'm talking about Edmonton.
Oh
yeah.
Walk us through
I'd have known that first.
I'm just curious because like when it comes to sporting events, and in hockey, right? Obviously, the Stanley Cup Finals would be something. In the football world, you got the Super Bowl,
Breakup.
Right? There's some different events that appreciate the laugh.
Scott Tournament of Hearts.
Yes, the Scott Tournament of Hearts. In hockey, Canada versus the United States, winner take all, is probably up there with all the other sporting events from a hockey standpoint. What time, like, were you guys in there? All the commentators were talking about when the building was opened up an hour before the game or what have you. The stands were already packed. The I don't know, the atmosphere in the building was already electric. Is that any of that true? All of it true?
Yeah, no, it was true. We got there like almost 2 hours before the game, and traffic was unreal. We got dropped off, and we went in by the Bobby Orr statue, and there's escalators that go up to the front door, and I swear to God, everyone on the escalator was wearing a Canadian jersey. Once we got in there, you saw how outnumbered we were, but there definitely was a lot of, I'd probably say it was like 75-25, maybe 70-30, something like that for blue to red. So
that's still quite a bit.
It was nuts because, after we won, of course, all the Americans left and there was nothing but red in the stands. And it was pretty cool to see, to say the least.
Hey, did you see any awesome signs? Were there any altercations in the crowd that you saw? Anything like that?
There was, before the game in warmups, a bunch of kids and a bunch of signs were right up on the glass trying to get pucks and stuff. But from where I was sitting, no one in our section had any signs. There was a lot of American flags and fake mullets and face paint and stuff like that with some Freebird signs. But other than that, it was just a bunch of cheering fans, I guess.
From the people sitting back over here, I watch the game, and at times I'm like, dear God, are we even in this game? Like, are we? The thing about a camera is you only see what the cameramen are showing you. What did you think of the game? Like, overall, like, was Canada all over the place? Was it fast? Was it just clogged up because of defense? Like from being able to watch the entire thing happen, for this hockey lover, just give me that. Like, was the game crazy, insane, fast, or was it just clogged up and it was kind of frustrating to watch?
It was a chess match for sure. Like you said, it was pretty defensive. I guess you don't want to give up any mistakes or make any mistakes in a game with as big as this. So there was a lot of dump ins, a lot of battles in the corners and stuff. It was almost like old time hockey, except it's just so fast. watching McDavid or McKinnon on the same line go end to end, it's pretty cool to see. And I don't know how the camera showed it, but anytime anyone touched the puck below the blue line, it was people were cheering and oohing and on. It was nuts. It was crazy. I still can't get over because I've been to other hockey games, Oilers games and stuff like that, and I went to Oilers Bruins game actually in January when I got back from Christmas break, and there's good fans and there's cheering and there's but there was not as much anticipation for whenever someone touched the puck, and it was real cool to see the line changes and the you got the best coaches in the world, not just one head coach. There's head coaches for assistant coaches. There was a lot of strategy going into the game. It was one of the best hockey games I've ever seen, if not the best one. So,
and you get it to go to overtime. Like, I mean, once again, if you draw up the final game, it going to overtime, the U.S. being absolutely all over Canada, Binnington standing on his head, and then who gets the puck in the slot? No other than Connor McDavid. I know Tooz will squirm at that a little bit, but
I'm going to say I could have made that shot.
Oh,
that was
Matthews
so
literally had the shot like that, like a shift earlier, and Binnington.
Yeah, this is Matthews we're talking about. This is his wheelhouse. Matthews last night was doing everything that you would expect of Matthews, which is not winning in a final game.
Well, Jordan Binnington has some success in that building for games that matter, so he sure stepped it up. I was sitting on the end opposite to McDavid's goal, so I saw both Matthews get robbed twice and Brady Tkachuk get robbed on the red line off the rebound. It's one of the craziest things I've ever seen. My teammate is a goalie, and he was telling me, just kind of like angles and stuff like that. And he screamed out loud when Binnington made that save. So I don't know if you can score on the best goalie in the world from the slot. Because
Cannon. Well put. Hey,
it took the best in the world to do it, and Hellebuyck had a great game. The goals he let in were goals that no one in the world can save. I mean, if you're shooting the puck, then maybe he could have saved it, but it was crazy.
Touché,
I had the perfect view.
Burn. Hey, okay. Overtime. They score. How quickly does the building end empty? And then the second question on that is you get to see something that is very rare. The Canadian flag gets raised in the United States in the Boston Gardens, surrounded, like all the hoopla around the U.S. is going to bully us on and on and on and on and on. How quickly does it empty? How cool was it to see the flag raised and O Can to be sung?
So, there's, I guess, two different types of American fans when that puck went in. One, the shock and awe, they couldn't believe it, hands on their head, just like didn't move. And then there was the other American who was just like out of there before the puck even went in the net. McDavid in the slot, they were already starting to leave. So it was crazy to see how fast that building emptied out, but it was even crazier to see how full it was with red jerseys. And with all the fans leaving, I got to actually get up right to the glass for the ceremony, and it was pretty amazing to see everyone singing "Oh Canada" to the flag raising in the States. I mean, with everything going on between the two countries, it was bittersweet. I made sure to send a video to my hockey group chat, make sure that all the Americans knew what was happening. Big Canada flag raising in the rafters of, TD Garden. So,
okay,
pretty awesome.
Speaking of the anthem, so this whole Chantal Kravasiuk thing with changing the lyrics, how many people noticed, and was there booing for the whole time, or was it just when she switched around the lyrics?
So, I mean, they were pretty good about not booing the anthem, unlike, I mean, us in Montreal.
Mhm.
But the announcer before came on and said, try and respect both countries' anthems and what have you. But I think if there was any time to boo the Canadian national anthem, it was when she was singing it, because it was one of the worst renditions I've ever heard in my entire life.
Well,
Um, I don't know what to tell you. It was bad. It was bad. I
it's
think TD Garden did it on purpose. I think that was mind games. I don't know why they picked her or who gets to make that decision, but if it was an American, it made sense.
well, no, actually, I would say that if it was the Liberals, it made sense. I mean, Chantal Kravasiak has a decades-long history of ruining everything that you should be able to love. I mean, you look at the first couple Our Lady Peace albums. You got all this anger, this angst. It just hits hard. The deep angry lyrics, like "I'll be waving my hand, watching you drown, watching you scream, no one's around," and "Why Superman's dead." And then Rain Maida, Rain Maida ends up hooking up with Chantal Kravasiak, and then it's all "Life is waiting for you." She's basically the Yoko Ono of Canadian music. She's everything. It's the same thing that happened with Silverchair and Natalie Imbruglia in Australia, where they go from frog stomp to straight lines. And so, yeah, the fact that we got this just absolute creative destruction nemesis of all things awesome to do the national anthem, that's exactly what I've come to expect from Canada these days.
Well, I think it's almost insulting to Yoko Ono with that national anthem. So,
Yep.
I mean, it was that bad, especially near the end. She held like the middle of Canada, oh, Canada, or something like that. And then I wish like she would have been like any other singer and just put the mic in the air halfway through. There was enough Canadians in the building to do that. And we almost, you could hear the fans singing it. So, but yeah, it was a tough listen.
Well, Cannon, appreciate you hopping on this morning. Two's, any final questions before we let Cannon out of here? I did bring it up. There's the pic of you in the arena. I mean, you got to be, you're in a select company of getting to just see an unbelievable moment in Canadian hockey history. I was telling my 8-year-old on the way to the game. Of course, I'm married to an American, so he was teasing me like, I don't know who I'm going to cheer for. I'm like, you don't know who you're going to cheer for in Canada versus States in hockey? Are you kidding me? Almost stopped and let him walk the rest of the way. But I was explaining.
I have no son.
I was explaining to him on the way. I'm like, listen, when it comes to hockey, other sports, you want to go cheer for the Americans in football or basketball, or there's a whole bunch of things. Sure. But when it comes to hockey, I'm like, 2002, we beat the Americans. 2010, we beat the Americans. In 2025, we're going to beat the Americans, right? So, like, yeah. To me, you got to see one of those iconic moments. I thought, honestly, Sportsnet last night, when they were interviewing Crosby, they were talking about his golden goal, and now you got Crosby, McDavid with his. Just a nice way the script was written last night, I guess, and you got to see it firsthand. If you got any final thoughts, we're here for them.
I mean, it's something I'm never going to forget. It was, words couldn't put, it was just so incredible that I can't even, I'm speechless thinking about it. It's something that I'm going to tell my kids and stuff. Being Jamie Sinclair's son, I'm sure I'm going to have kids, but no, it was incredible. It was a very quiet ride home with my American teammates, and that's definitely a memory that I'm not going to forget for sure, especially after the game, walking out, all of the Canadian fans singing "Ole, Ole, Ole." So I mean, I wouldn't trade it for the world. My grandpa texted me before the game and he said, I'll send you $1,000 and I'll pay for your plane fare home to trade spots with me. And first of all, $1,000 wouldn't have covered the ticket. that close to the game. But I wouldn't have traded that for any money in the world. So it was pretty incredible.
Well, here's what I can tell you. In 2010, I was in college in the States, surrounded by Americans when Crosby scored the goal. And last night we were all texting about the game. That's 15 years later. So those are friendships and memories and everything else that usually will go a long time past. I mean, I got to tease them all last night all again. So shout out to my American buddies that are possibly tuning into this. It's a lot of fun when Canada continues to do Canadian things, which we can't say a whole lot these days, twos on this show. But when it comes to hockey, we still find a way. Cannon, thanks for hopping on, and appreciate
nice
you giving
to
me some
meet
time and a couple of zingers on twos. And one,
just digs right from the corner. Hey,
oh man,
hey,
perfect.
Yeah, well, I had to. It's the best podcast in the world. Gotta throw my name out there.
Appreciate
that.
Yeah.
Cannon, thanks again.
Thank you for having me.
There you go. Cannon Sinclair, sharp, no nerves whatsoever. And
what a beauty.
I feel like even Jamie's had nerves coming on the podcast before. Ice in the veins of the young Sinclair. All right. What do we got? What do we got next, twos, while we wait on our next guest? I assume we got a next guest coming.
What do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about how the NDP isn't a serious party? The rats fleeing the sinking ship of the week?
Man, the rats fleeing the ship of the week is.
Let's go with that.
We're up to 35. 35 Liberal MPs not coming back. All tendering their resignation. Yep, we're done with this. And that's been interesting to watch.
Yeah. So last week it was Jen McConnell or O'Connell, pardon me. Jen O'Connell basically just right after the mashup said she's not going to run again. And then a couple days ago, it was Pascal Saint-Onge. And the really interesting thing about Pascal is that she's a rookie member of parliament. And so she's in a situation where she could, assuming that she has even a tiny chance of winning, if she wins the next one, if she wins one more election, she's got a multi-million-dollar pension for the rest of her life. And when people are running for elections, they get back 75% of what they spend. So even if she spent $100,000 and got back 75 grand of it, she's out $25,000. If she had a 1% chance of getting a $2.5 million pension, it's pot odds basically. If she was even a slim hope, like just a fraction of a hope, it would make financial sense for her to run again because she'd be looking at the potential upside of millions of dollars. And the fact that she didn't tells me that she had absolutely zero hope of winning it, regardless of who won the leadership campaign, which lends itself to this whole thing about the recent bump in the polls that you're seeing for the Liberals potentially under Mark Carney as being either very short-lived or very overstated.
Yeah, it once again, very interesting to watch. Continue to see people leave. We got our next guest hiding in the back. We're gonna bring him on. He was just on the podcast actually. Peter Schultz. He's well, we'll just bring you in, Peter. We want to talk about the I don't know. Twos has it as the monorail, the new high speed rail between Quebec City and Toronto. I'm gonna lay it out, and then here's the headline: taxpayers get railed. First off, Peter, thanks for hopping on.
My pleasure. Sorry, you can see I'm calling from my car. I was picking up kids this morning.
It's not even the first time it's happened.
No, this is quite standard on the show. I'll lay it out, and then we want to get your thoughts. High-speed rail will run from Quebec City to Toronto no earlier than 2041. The rail line is projected to cost between $60 billion and $90 billion. Shovels aren't expected to go on the ground for at least 5 years, and it's supposed to span from Quebec City to Toronto with stops in Laval, Montreal, Ottawa, Peterborough, and Trois-Rivières. Whatever.
Three Rivers.
Thank you. And built by the scandal-riddled SNC Lavalin, rebranded as Atkins Realis. So, Peter, what are your thoughts on this story? Well, and maybe the last rubber stamp Trudeau does before he exits the PM seat.
I'll give you two answers to that. One is my political opinion, which is just an opinion, is that this is just phase 2 of the Liberal plan to get reelected by winning over votes in Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa, which are their bases. Phase 1 being Trudeau going to Mar-a-Lago and pissing off Trump so that Trump would say a bunch of inflammatory stuff and get Canadian nationalism up, and then the Liberals could pretend to be hallmark, carriers of the Maple Leaf, which is all bupkis. That's my personal opinion. I have a bit of a professional opinion. I'm registered with the Institute of Transportation Engineering out of Washington, D.C. as professional transportation planner. I went to Paris for a week some years ago to take a course, like a 40-hour course on planning for high-speed rail systems. And, I felt it would be more useful to your audience to speak from the admittedly limited professional perspective on how does this look like from a transportation perspective.
Yeah.
And I don't like it, but I don't amazingly dislike it. The parts I do kind of like is that they've got SNCF in there as an advisor. SNCF is the French high-speed rail system company, and they do contract internationally. And the key rule with France is cost overruns have to be borne by the private sector partner, not the government. Otherwise, the costs just go spiraling out to the moon. I don't see that being reflected, but I'm glad that SNCF is in there. Yes, Atkins Rail S is a rebrand of SNC Lavalin, which is, has a bad name now in Canada. Having said that, I know some very good people at Atkins Realis. And not the people that are on this particular team on Alto, which is the name of the high-speed rail system. As for First Nations involvement, I get the sense it's fake at this time. They talk about First Nations and has its own link on their website, but I'm in the First Nations consulting world a bit, and I know some of the more prominent players in First Nations consulting in Ontario, and they're not invited. They haven't gotten work in this. And then you look at the lineup of people that are running this company, and the fact that the chief advisor on project management is from Via Rail. I'm like, red alert. I mean, you don't want to do anything that Via Rail does in terms of attracting passengers, running trains on time, is making sure the trains are clean, making the stations are good. That's a huge issue. Another issue is I see no comment whatsoever about value capture at stations. The way you pay for these trains is you upgrade them. You upgrade the area around the stations. You build apartment towers and you build office buildings, and the government takes a cut of that in order to help cover the capital cost of the train. That is not calculated for whatsoever in this lineup of what they're doing or who's involved. And finally, when they say, oh, it's going to save carbon, and this is how much carbon it's going to save, I'm going, that's bupkis. High-speed rail must be built on concrete ties. It cannot be done on wooden ties. The forces on the ground are insane from a 300 kilometer an hour moving train, even if it is electrified. So you have to have a concrete base, and you have to have concrete ties. You have to have high quality steel. This is about 1,000 kilometers of steel and concrete, and the CO2 that's going to be emitted from construction is very unlikely to be neutral, on the fact that, one ticket is going to be less carbon than someone driving in a bus. That's my initial thoughts looking at it.
Okay. Have they given any details as to where they came up with it's going to grow the economy by $35 billion a year, or, with what you were just saying about the carbon footprint? Have they released any of the numbers as to what their break-even point is with how many passengers it's going to take before it becomes carbon neutral?
I can't answer the second question. I on their website, no, they don't have a breakdown of how they do their carbon calculations in terms of growing the economy. Simply the construction estimate alone is going to be pumping good freshly printed money into the economy. which our children will be paying for in interest fees, and their children as well.
But they haven't talked about like the ongoing financial benefits of it, aside from we're paying people to do this, so it's going to grow the economy.
I'd have to crack into their Excel sheets, which they are obviously not going to post online, to comment on that. When I worked for the now defunct Alaska to Alberta Railway, which failed due to financial mismanagement at the executive level, and I ended up getting laid off. They would put forward numbers about how it would grow the economy of Yukon or whatever. And when you crack open the Excel sheets, you could start criticizing it in more detail. So you can't really do that detailed analysis until you get access to those Excel sheets, which I'm very unlikely they're going to release.
Peter, from our initial chat, you're for building railways, correct?
In general, yes. With the big proviso, they have to be done the right way.
Okay, so when you just looking at this picture that I got thrown up there of where the intended line is going to go, are you like, oh yeah, that makes sense? Not the inner workings. Just take the picture for what it looks like, and you go, yes, this makes sense, or no, this doesn't make sense.
My initial reaction is, if you're going to have a high-speed rail system in Canada, that's probably where you need to do it. And you probably should have allocated the right-of-ways about 30 years ago, when land prices were about a tenth of what they are now. In terms of actually getting the numbers up, look, like France passed a law that if there's a high-speed rail service to the town, you can't fly there. And that's how they got their passenger numbers up enough that they could fill their trains. Would Canada have to cancel all flights between Toronto and Montreal? Maybe. I noticed that Air Canada is a partner in this, so that would tell me that they're leaning that direction, which totally makes sense. If you can check in at a train station with your luggage and you get, you take your train to the nearest airport, and then the bags are transferred for you, and then you fly to your next city, that totally makes sense.
Is that why? I don't know if Tuz was going to ask this, but why would Air Canada partner with a train when their business is flying?
Yeah, I mean, there's no air involved.
High-speed trains and planes actually compete for the same market in distances below 500 or 600 kilometers, and that's been proven through economic and game theory at many, many levels by many universities. And that's part of the reason that France chose to outlaw flights between towns that are serviced by high-speed rail, so they could force the capture of that market, because they own the trains and they want them to make money. Why would Air Canada be part of this? There's two possibilities. Number one is to integrate the train scheduling systems with their flight system, so that you'd be buying combined tickets. As I said, like a combined rail air ticket, so transportation as a service as opposed to mode. I wrote a letter to the CEO of WestJet 10 years ago saying it should be the West train between Calgary and Edmonton. WestJet, the government could own the tracks, and WestJet just runs the trains. That way, the trains run on time and they're clean, because if the trains are owned by the government, then more likely the trains are going to be dirty and not run on time. And he said, well, WestJet is in the plane business, not the train business. And that thinking has changed over the last 10 years, that transportation should be thought of as a service. You're getting from my house to where I'm going, not from this airport to that airport. So Air Canada might be part of that, or Air Canada might be thinking, we're just going to own the trains. We'll run the trains and the government just own the track.
And then if it doesn't go well, they just get another bailout.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
If you were looking at Canada right now, and like I see this and I'm like, I hear 2041. I'm like, it's like that's worse than throwing a dart at a dartboard and seeing it work. Like, we're talking 16 years away, and it doesn't even compute in my brain. Like, are we just so far gone, Peter, that we can't even get a big project like this done in a couple of year time span? Is there just no way to do that?
In the real world, high-speed rail systems are built in about a 10-year time frame. Yes, but Canada is not real world. Canada is this world of weird bureaucracy and endless meetings and regulations and competing priorities, and Whether it can be done in 16 years or not, I don't know. If it was built by a private sector whose money is on the line and they need to get it done in a certain frank of time, I think yes. If it's done by the government, I think it's just an announcement to win the next election. They know that they're going up primarily in the Liberal support is concentrated in the three big cities of Ottawa, Montreal, and Toronto. Toronto and Ottawa were turning blue, and the Liberals figured the only way we're going to win is turn those cities around. So let's get nationalism up phase one. Now let's throw in a big train there to get the socially minded folks really fired up, and we'll regain those three cities in the next election.
Do you think that's
kind of sorry, I was going to say it's kind of a moot point now because my understanding, although there's no specifics out yet, is that they're drafting these contracts in such a way to basically guarantee the work goes forward regardless of who's in charge.
I haven't looked into them, but that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to do something like that when reasonably we could have an election at just about any time now, and to get companies, the morally upstanding ones like SNC Lavalin to get on board with assigning a bunch of resources to something that might just get canceled at any minute. It's the same thing that Rachel Notley did with the leases on the oil tankers right before the 2019 election, where the backout clauses were horrendously expensive. And then she got mad at the UCP for wasting all of that money, not at herself for setting them up for reasonable governance costing that much money.
Yeah, and one of the line items on Alberta electric bills is that extra amount for the NDP failing to complete a different contract with a different electric provider that they had to be paid out, and we're still paying for that extra 50 cents on our electric bills 10 or 15 years later. I know I don't know. The fact that it's being signed by a lame duck prime minister who's already announced his intention to resign. If I was Pierre Poilievre, I would ask a lawyer, could I challenge this in court on the basis that the government does not have the authority to sign these sizes of contracts at this stage?
Well, especially while they're
but all the Supreme Court justices are liberal. 7 of 9 are liberal, so they probably would say, no, it's totally legit.
I think personally, regardless of what happens going forward with this, you gave out the name of the train. I don't like that. I want this to be the Justin Trudeau train line going forward, so that every step of the way, everybody is reminded the cost overruns, the schedule overruns. When it's 3342, the year 3342, and they're just getting the first leg between Montreal and Laval done. They're like, yeah, that's the Justin Trudeau. Who the hell was that? He was this idiot from back 1,000 years ago, right? I want this to be the Justin Trudeau train line. I think that, we should be naming lagoons and airports after shitty politicians. And I want his name to be on this fucking train line. And I'm calling it now.
Before we let Peter out here, I'm curious if you can add into the discussion, me and Twos. I can't remember. I feel like we were having it before we started. You lay out Trudeau goes to Mar-a-Lago. Then all this national pride gets raw. We're going to be in this fight. Carney's going to step in. They're building this train line because they're trying to win over the major cities. Do you see that possibly working? Is there anything in you guys? Oh yeah, this is working, and we're about to have Carney for X amount of time. Like, do you see that, or you're like, no? At this point, they're too far gone.
I think it is a possibility, and that's part of the reason I'm saying these things, because I know Montreal is already liberal, and they're going to stay liberal, in spite of the fact that Justin Trudeau is about the most anti-Semitic prime minister we've ever had in terms of what he's done. He won't say it, but he's made life a lot more dangerous for Jews in this country. But Ottawa and Toronto could be wooed, and because of the concentration of votes and the number of votes in those two cities, yeah, I am worried. And when I think about, remember, Mark Carney was advising Trudeau in the last 5 years on the economic policy. We've got the former Prime Minister of England coming over here and saying, do not hire Mark Carney because you'll ruin your country. When we've got Gerald Butts, who's thrown in his lot with Mark Carney, and he's the one that is the dirty realpolitik guy that kept the Trudeau regime going this long with all their dirty tricks. Yeah, it scares the shit out of me because I see Mark coming in. The first thing he's doing is the carbon tax is going to go way, way up, and he's going to bring in Bill C-69. He's going to be putting tens of thousands of Canadians under house arrest on the worry that they might write something snarky on somewhere online and hurt somebody's feelings. Yeah, I think we should all be scared.
Well, and I don't think it's much of a stretch to say that there's a lot of people in those cities you just mentioned who are well known for just being idiotic clapping seals. And so you wave something shiny in front of them. I mean, 3 years ago, it was a sign of this flag was a sign of white supremacy, and now they're waving it proudly. Like, pick a lane. But they don't have a lane. They just do whatever the hell they just cheer for whatever the hell they're told to cheer for.
Well, that's a way to just bring us. Canada wins, and now
Canada wins, and now Trudeau, because of it, Trudeau is going to have a bump in the polls. So, how do you feel about that, Sean?
I think I'm very saddened by the state of the Canadian voter, if that's the case, right? Like, I mean,
I guarantee you that's the case.
I don't know. Okay, one final thing on
what pisses me off. This $80 billion is coming from Alberta. He's using Alberta money to buy Eastern votes.
Are you new here?
This is a bigger scale than before.
What Tooze is being a jackass about is he's saying this is just standard operating procedure to use our money to work against us. Whether it's just over and over and over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. The sad part about this show, as we pointed out over and over and over again, it's been a sad state of affairs. One more thing before we let you out of here. You mentioned being on the project with high-speed rail to Alaska, correct? And then
it wasn't high-speed rail. That was just standard freight.
Just standard freight.
Yeah.
Do you think it's possible, seeing the state of everywhere in leadership in government right now, to actually get big
Anchorage,
capital projects, right? Anchorage to Grand Prairie or what have you done? Can that even be possible now?
24 hours ago, I would have said yes. But now I'm not so sure. I got an email from the higher ups in the bureaucracy of the government in Alberta yesterday saying we're not supporting rail. We're interested, basically saying we're interested in pipelines. Please keep us abreast if you are able to get any money from the Canadian Infrastructure Bank. And I'm thinking like fat chance. Canadian Infrastructure Bank has never funded anything, certainly not anything in Western Canada. So now I'm not sure anymore.
Well,
can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah.
It's only 24 hours, and I can't really expand on it this early because I need to digest it. And I mean, I've got positive working relationships, and sometimes there's professional disagreements, and I don't want to, indirectly, reduce my credibility or reputation that I've built so hard over the last 3 or 4 years about this project. But I still think that Alberta needs that railway because it gives us the leverage we need against the Americans and against the Eastern Canadians. And I want to get that message across clearly, besides which creating the opportunity for where's everyone going to live in Alberta when it's got 10 million people in 20 years? We can't just have everybody packed into Calgary and Edmonton. We need to open up infrastructure for other cities. And the only way to do that was the railway. So I want to kill 3 birds with 1 stone. And I'm just, this platform gives me an opportunity to say that and appreciate that.
Yeah, well, we got a lot of time for you, Peter, being on the show. Any final questions, Tues, before we let Peter out of here?
No, that was it. I've got I definitely think we need a follow-up, but I think a few things need to play out first. Yeah, I've got more questions than answers, not because of anything that was done wrong here, but just because now I'm like, okay, well, let's see how this actually starts shaping up, and then we can actually look at more than just the back of the napkin deal that they made with SNC Lavalin, without even sourcing it out before they announced it.
Well,
Yeah,
they did source it out with 3 parties.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Well, then why did this blindside everybody if it had already been bid out?
The way these things are done is they advertise them publicly, but then they just put it on Mercs for like 2 weeks. And they tell the people that they want to likely win. They'll tell them, they'll tell them a couple of months in advance, so they have time to prepare their proposals. Anyway, there were 3 finalist groups, each one of which seemed credible to me based on looking at the companies involved. But of course, it went to the Quebec firm.
Yeah, of course it did. Peter Schultz, appreciate you hopping on. For the podcast listener, Peter is going to be back on right away. He was on 798, and you'll be on I don't know, it'll be like 8:05 or something. So he's coming back on. And of course, he hopped on. I was looking at all the news stories. I'm like, well, we need a train guy. And wouldn't you know, we have one. So, Peter, appreciate you stopping on wherever side of the road you're at here in Alberta and giving us some information this morning. We'll let you out of here. And, like Tu says, we'll probably have a follow-up here at some point, but appreciate you hopping on this morning.
Thanks very much.
Thanks very much for inviting me. Appreciate it.
There you go. Peter Schultz. He was just on the podcast, folks, 798, and that got a lot of fanfare via the old text line. There was a lot of texts regarding Peter and some of the things he said on the podcast in regards to rail systems and how it can do different things for Alberta. Although, once again, bringing up the picture here of Quebec to Toronto, I was curious. I'm like, is it even a good idea? Yeah, it's a good idea, but it should have been done 30 years ago, right? Not all the different things.
That's just like, off. How many times do we need to say that in this country?
Yeah, well, but once again, when it comes to our country and getting things done, there's a lot of things that should be done. There's a lot of common sense things that should be done. And they get tied up in bureaucracy. I think it's Shane Getson, actually, as I'm listening to him. I'm like, he's been talking about this energy corridor for like 4 years now. I'm like, has it been 4 years? It's been 4 years that he's been talking about that. And I'm like, I'm irritated because I don't know if it's any closer. I'm sure Shane will say it's closer, but it's like we got a proposed train system. Peter says, yeah, I mean, like arguably that's the right way to go. And it'll be in at least, 16 years from now. You're like, oh man. In the meantime, it'll be delayed 10 years. It'll be way over budget. Just list all the problems that our government's going to attack onto it. It's going to happen. So
well, actually, I should have asked him for some clarity on that when he was talking about how the contractors need to eat the cost overruns rather than going in a cost plus contract model. I wasn't quite clear whether he was talking about that being the best way to do it or that the way Canada is going to do it. You should ask him about that in the next time we have him on.
Like I say, we're going to have him back in the on the podcast by popular demand. So we'll have plenty to talk about there. Okay, let's speed this sucker up. Liberal losership race. You've got plenty going on here. We were talking about the 35 people that backed out with the MPs. Now we're talking about the people that are going to try and run the sinking ship, which always seems to go back to Carney. He had a couple of things come out in the last week. One, mocking the power of the market, free enterprise, and Milton Friedman, implying only career politicians believe in that. And then he also was quoted as...
By the way, I would say that we are not career politicians, and yet Milton Friedman has been quoted many times on this show, including, this was a great one I saw on the internet the other day. One of the greatest mistakes is to judge policies and programs by their intentions rather than their results. This is the guy that Mark Carney is shit talking.
Correct.
Yeah, go figure. Go figure. A liberal politician is shit talking a guy who says judge them by the results rather than the name of the program.
Carney was also quoted this week saying, people will charge me as being an elitist or a globalist. Happens to be exactly what we need. That's quoted from
maybe
Mark
that's
Carney.
what you need, but that's not what we need.
Right. So
he caught hell. He actually caught hell, and the mainstream media, to their credit, actually brought this up. It came out on CTV. It was in the National Post. I think there was a couple other places too, rather than just the people like us who were like, well, look, he said this over here and he said that over here. So when he was in Kamloops, he said that he was going to expedite pipeline approval processes and just make sure the pipelines get built. And then when he went to Quebec, he said in fucking French that that he was not going to force pipelines through on anybody.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, standard politician, right?
Yeah.
For a guy who's not a politician, doing a whole lot of things that smell like a politician. And then also in the leadership race, the Liberal Party has sent a list of questions to leadership candidate Rui Dahlia, who raises concerns about a possible foreign interference from India and alleged campaign irregularities. So they're sniffing around Ruby, saying there's issues there.
Well, it's funny because the campaign irregularities posted out in the Globe and Mail article, they're not really the kind of thing that I would attribute to foreign interference. So she runs some big company that does a whole bunch of weird shit. It's like hotels, healthcare, and something else. And so there's a whole bunch of people who work for her that are volunteering for the campaign. And the question they put out was, will they sign an affidavit saying that they're not being paid? And then the other one was that there was a whole bunch of people who donated using the same credit card, which I would guess is fairly standard in Canadian elections and not something that you would limit strictly to foreign interference. I imagine that happens with all kinds of domestic shit. Is it right? No, it's her just funneling money allegedly to her campaign by getting as many people as possible to put their names down on it while the money actually comes from her. But that's the kind of thing I would expect from every politician in this country, regardless of what level of politics they're at.
This was Katrina Gold's leadership event in Calgary. Doesn't look like anything's going on there. That was Andy Lee throwing that out as well.
Karina Gold didn't even show up to it. Apparently she got snowed out with all the bad weather that hit Eastern Canada, but didn't bother canceling it. And so the only people who showed up, keeping in mind that everybody who was invited to this was under the impression that it was still going, the only people who showed up were a couple YouTubers and independent media types who wanted to see what the hullabaloo was about.
NDP, Ontario NDP candidate who said she wanted to be a black woman drops out of the election. Yes, the NDP is not a serious party. We're talking about Amanda Savitz, the NDP candidate of Ellen Middlesex, London, was recorded during a presentation, which Tooz is going to play.
You look like I do, and people call you a Karen, it's difficult to be taken seriously as a leader of the fifth wave of feminism.
It gets better, folks. It gets better.
The more complicated answer is that I want to know all that I know. I want to be a sociologist and a women's studies professor. I want to be an expert in inequality with lived experiences of poverty and living in addiction and alcoholism.
Now, to be clear, this is her. You got to go back, but she meanders a lot. The NDP aren't really known for being fast-talking, fast-thinking people. The start of this was her explaining why she wishes she was a black woman. And she wishes to be a black woman because
in addiction and alcoholism.
So that she could know more about poverty, addiction, and alcoholism.
Yeah.
Fast forward another day, and she backed out of the race, which is interesting because now this is the Ontario federal or provincial
election,
and it's too close to the election for them to replace her with another candidate. So that Middlesex riding that she was running in will not have an NDP candidate in it because she's such a goddamn idiot that they're better off not running a candidate than running her, which is probably, if you get enough time to dig into things, pretty true for a lot of them, I would probably say.
And then you got Doug Ford in the Ontario election. Operation Deterrence continues to deliver results at the border, and he lists off a whole bunch of things that are going on at the border.
Okay, read those off.
Oh, you want me to read them off? Okay.
Yes.
14.25 kilograms of fentanyl seized, 41 illegal firearms seized, 628 kilograms of cocaine seized, 8 stolen vehicles recovered, 8 illegal border crossers intercepted. In total, 736 charges have been laid after 12,000 of dedicated patrol hours and nearly 13,000 trucks inspected.
Now, 14.25 kilograms is almost as much as that one that Nenshi was talking about, where he's like, what's the big deal?
What's the big deal?
You know, what it was 40 pounds, right? I think it was 40 pounds.
40 pounds. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that's not much more than 14.25 kilos. And so, this, well, what's the big deal? This is all we seized last year. Well, as soon as you start actually looking for it, you're going to find it everywhere. You look at all the stuff that they have found at the border since they had Trump light a fire under their lazy fat asses.
Well, here's Stephen Pumoasi. I wanted to, like, you could put an Ontario flight. You could put Doug Ford beside this. We have no fentanyl. 1 week later,
I don't know if my monitor's big enough, but okay.
We seized millions of lethal doses of track stop. Then it went on to today saying the Democratic People's Republic of Canada orders all journalists to stop covering this case by the order of the King's Court. But
what? What? Where was this? I didn't see this.
It's officers seize 8 kilograms, potentially millions of doses of fentanyl during traffic stop in Swift Current.
Let me see the next one. All right, I'm going to read this. One of the 2 people charged in a massive fentanyl seizure near Swift Current will be out on bail. And then at the bottom, highlighted, any details of the case against Singh are currently under a publication ban. Yeah. This is
Canada. This is
Canada.
Right? Like,
well,
I mean,
we want to know how bad this problem is. Publication ban. Release the documents. Prorogue Parliament.
Yeah.
What happened in that Winnipeg lab? Well, let's just have an election instead.
Oh, man. Okay. Mile High Club reaches new low. We're talking the plane crash. So I think Tuesday. Do you got the video? I didn't even think to bring up.
I do, but I was telling you right before we came on that I did something fucky.
Okay. Well, I haven't even read this yet. So I texted while Tu's looking for the plane crash at the Toronto Pearson Airport. Like I reached out to a bunch of different guys I knew, and so an anonymous source who doesn't want his name or her name released sent me this, and so this is what he texted me. He said I could share these results. Yes, Endeavor was obsessed with DEI, as are most airlines. Ongoing and aggressive pushbacks with the ALPA, largest pilot union in North America, has been stonewalled with union leaders blindly reciting vacuous woke speaking points. The majority of pilots seem fed up with DEI and just want the best pilots in the seats beside them. Makes sense, right? Canadian airlines are also obsessed with DEI, and in some cases, very active DEI managers are in the C-suite weekly presenting graphs where they're all trying to simply bend the hiring curves upwards for various minorities. Metrics over merit, which is insane when they publicly mouth safety first always. He then said, B, aviation is fraught with a certain amount of risk and the shit happens factor, which is why pilots are well compensated to mitigate with professional skill. But maybe both pilots were rock stars, did their best, and there was a control failure at 100 or something similar. Seems rather unlikely, and some of the evidence suggests experience may have been a factor, but maybe not. The investigation will determine much of that, and accountability, which we must all take very seriously, will be determined in lessons learned. Thank God no one was killed, which is honestly a miracle.
That is very true. I just want to point out the elephant in the room on this whole plane thing. And it's that the name of the pilot has not been released yet. Now, we've talked about this a bunch of times on the Mashup, where whenever there's some particularly egregious crime committed, they'll say, oh, a Canadian man, or the name of the person has not been released. And then eventually when it comes out later, you're like, oh, because if it's a white guy, they're always like, oh, it's a white guy that did this. But if they're hush-hush about it, then you find out a few days later that it was not. And the fact that we have not found out that this was a white guy, and then everybody's like, well, who is this?
Well, it tells you that you know exactly.
It very much was.
It goes back to in COVID. Everybody can remember in COVID when somebody would die, if they were unvaccinated, it was like the leading part of the story.
Yep.
Unvaccinated person dies. But if they were vaccinated, they never talked about it once. And you're like, okay, you're telling the story without telling the story. You're pointing out the same bloody thing in a different way.
Oh, Carol says it's a woman and her name has been leaked. That might be brand new to me. I was double checking before we came online and I couldn't find anything concrete about that. But here's the video. All right. So this was somebody just waiting to taxi on or something like that right next to the runway. The pilots' names were Some Ting Wong and Wee Too Low. Yeah. And their first mistake is that the wheels go on the bottom of the plane. So here it is. Here it is. It's coming in, and you can see actually, if I could zoom in better on this, you'd actually be able to see the lady in the cockpit flip down her visor at this point and start adjusting her lipstick. Okay, and then here we go.
Oh fuck! Oh fuck! Oh no 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 no! Tower, you're seeing this airplane just crash into Creek.
So that was it. And then Bonnie says the pilot is a 25-year-old white woman who just qualified for her commercial license last month. I want to say Amanda something. Well, at least she had man in her name.
There you go. I mean, all right. What do we got next?
Oh, well, I suppose we
want
could
rapid fire? All right, rapid fire. Here we go. Democracy Watch is filing for prosecution of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau over the SNC Lavalin affair.
Yeah.
You have Mary Ng, Minister of Export and Trade. They brought 220 plus delegates from across all 10 provinces, the largest, biggest trade mission biggest ever trade mission to Australia. So they got 220 Canadians.
227 Canadians. Parliament's prorogued, and we're about to lose all our jobs, and that sucks, folks. But the best we could offer you is a round-trip flight to Australia.
Yeah, there they
are.
But
we have to do it real quick before the fucking purses get closed.
There they all are.
We sent all these people to go to Australia for a trade mission. If you're going to talk business, why the fuck would you want to send a Liberal there in the first place?
The Canadian Taxpayers Federation, shout out to them. I tried getting Chris Sims. I know you're sitting in a meeting and you're probably watching this because the meeting's probably boring. But taxpayers, we tried.
I bet you they have really fun and interesting meetings.
I don't know. Do they?
I bet you. See, most meetings really suck because it's ran by people who are ineffectual because they don't know how to navigate this kind of thing, and they're talking about dry topics. These are people like the CTF has some of the best and brightest in this country. I guarantee they've got somebody who's spot on when it comes to meetings.
CTF, we have a ton of time for you, and they have unearthed that the Global Affairs spent more than $527,000 on paintings, photos, and Lego art. No, I can't make that up.
Yeah.
$25,000.
They are our Doge.
$25,000 for a tapestry by Calgary-based textile artist Simone Elizabeth Saunders. Other purchases in 2024 included $19,000 for an oil painting, $18,000 for an acrylic on canvas piece, and just under $10,000 for a mixed media piece made out of Lego blocks. 10G.
This is what your tax dollars are going towards. That and a monorail.
If Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives form government after the next federal election, Poilievre will defund CBC and expand government funding arrangements to include, I like how this news article said it, right-wing alternative media outlets. Quoted, we have to depoliticize news media violence, Poilievre said. Right now, what happens is there are subsidies that go to favored media outlets that the CRA designates, and there's not funding for others.
Yes. So this is an interesting sort of splicing of things he said to give an entirely dishonest representation of what he spoke to, which is exactly what you would expect from Press Progress. All right. So he had said two separate things. He had said, one, that the way the media subsidy is set up is to subsidize their favorite medias and exclude other ones. And the other thing he said was that he wants to get a better process for getting credentials for alternative media sources, so that we could have the Parliament Hill press pass, for example. Is those are the two things he was talking about. And they're like, well, what if we just forget the fact that they're two separate subjects, mash it all together, and say that he said he was Hitler, literally Hitler? Press progress, people. This is what you get.
PepsiCo will no longer have a DEI officer. PepsiCo will no longer have DEI team. They will end DEI representation goals, and they will end all DEI trainings. Just one more in the long list of major companies getting rid of it.
This is DEI, folks, is why they got rid of Crystal Pepsi.
One of Canada's largest universities is suspending new admissions to 18 programs this fall in the face of declining enrollment and multi-million-dollar deficit. As of September, York University will be putting a pause on incoming students in mostly language and humanity majors from Spanish and Italian degrees to Indigenous, Jewish, gender, and women's studies. And York currently faces operating budget deficit of $132 million.
So they will not admit incoming students into the following majors: German, Italian, Portuguese, Luso-Brazilian, and Spanish languages, classics and classical studies, East Asian studies, Hellenic, which is Greek studies, Indigenous studies, Jewish studies, religious studies, gender and women's studies, and sexuality studies. And then they added 4 more: sociology, global history and justice, English and English and Spanish and Latin American cultures and societies. Now, look, in this day and age, do you need to go to university for 4 years to learn how to speak fucking Portuguese? You got Duolingo on your phone. This stuff is irrelevant. The fact that it's no longer there is a good thing.
GameStop looks to sell its Canadian and French operations. CEO cites wokeness and DEI. The brick-and-mortar video game retailer and popular meme stock GameStop announced Tuesday that it plans to sell its operations in France and Canada after an evaluation of its international assets. Quoted, email M&A at GameStop.com if you're interested in buying GameStop Canada or Micromania France. GameStop CEO Ryan Cohen posted to X Tuesday morning, quoted, high taxes, liberalism, socialism, progressivism, wokeness, and DEI included at no additional cost if you buy today, exclamation point.
This is how bad the business environment is in Canada, is that you have like a multi-billion-dollar company that did an impressive pivot, given the fact that almost every single game you buy nowadays, you buy virtually, and they've still managed to stay around, and they've still managed to keep the doors open. And it baffles me, because anytime you go in there, they've got a whole fucking wall of Funko Pop figures. And I have never, ever seen anybody buy or own a Funko Pop figure, regardless of who is on it. They're unimaginative, they're boring, they're lazy, and yet you see them in stores all the time, and nobody ever buys them. But somehow they managed to make a go of it, despite the fact that they devoted so much fucking shelf space. But it's all of this shit that finally was the last nail in the coffin for GameStop in Canada.
Toronto Star. This is an article penned by Laura McGee and Young Yu. Contributors, Laura McGee is the founder and CEO of Diversio and a board member of Global Citizen and Venture for Canada, just so I can kind of outline before I read the headline, okay? Mm-hmm. The backlash against DEI. Remember everything we just read about DEI? All American, okay? The PepsiCo, American company.
Well, GameStop was Canada and York University.
GameStop is getting out of Canada.
Yeah. Okay. I get what you're saying. You said it unclearly, but I can read between the lines.
The backlash against DEI is a business mistake Canada cannot afford to make. This is in the Toronto Star, folks. Abandoning DEI now would be a grave mistake. Companies including Costco, Goldman Sachs, Deutsche Bank, Apple, Delta Airlines, JP Morgan, and even the NFL are reaffirming their commitment because they recognize that inclusion is not a cost, but an investment in performance, resilience, and future growth.
Here's the thing. You've got multi-billion-dollar companies all over the world who are abandoning this like
Yes.
it's Elon Musk's children, okay? And they can't get far enough away from this shit. They exist to make money. They exist to be profitable. They exist to provide a return on investment to shareholders.
Can you
And
imagine? Can you imagine if the NFL actually brought in DEI, the water boys out there playing football?
No. But that's where I was going to go to next. The NFL is devoted to diversity.
No, they're not.
They've got like 80%. 80% of that league is all one nationality. You want to go and bring in a whole bunch of diversity? I dare you. I tell you what, it'd be interesting. How many? You know what?
6'5" linebacker tackles the actual water boy, right?
Yeah,
like
100% of the people playing in the NFL are not women. Where's their representation? DEI idiots.
Here is here, I'll pull it up. Here's the tweet. Here's Chris Sims. Once again,
that's Pascal St. Ange, who just decided that she was quitting.
CTF. Heritage Minister holding a news conference on CBC. So far, she wants to remove the money taxpayers pay for the CBC to be removed from the budget, so we cannot see it as a line item anymore and stick it in statutory appropriations. Instead, sounds like the Liberal government wants to funding of $62 per person in Canada, which would equate to $2.5 billion per year going to the CBC. That's what Chris Sims had sent out here a few days ago.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'd like to point out that when it comes to anything liberal, they'll jump on board with anything with the name statutory in it.
Ahead of Pierre Poilievre's press conference, his comms team announcing he's only taking 5 questions from the pre-selected media: True North, Y Media, South Asian Daily, Radio Canada, Rebel News, and Oxygen Canada News. When asked why, his team just said, "That's what we're doing today."
So this is a guy. This tweet is from a guy who works at Global, who was upset because he wasn't going to be able to ask questions. And there was some CBC people there as well who were similarly outraged because how dare you exclude us? We're the fucking guys. But here's the thing. Like, these people have established over and over again, year over year, that it doesn't matter what questions get asked. It doesn't matter what gets said by anybody who isn't Liberal or NDP or Green. You're not going to have an honest conversation about any of this shit. And so if you're unwilling to have an honest conversation about what's being said, why are you now surprised that you're not involved in the fucking conversation? Like, if Justin Trudeau came out, if there was a video that came out of Justin Trudeau drowning puppies, you would see on Global and CBC the next day, Prime Minister of Canada making the world safer for cats.
The not so great one. Edmonton resident says it's time to rename Wayne Gretzky Street due to Trump links. I don't need to read any more than that.
No.
Me in the face.
Please go on. Please go on.
No, I'm not. He's upset because he endorsed Trump. Are we kidding me? The same voter or a different part of this voting base would say they want to rename Wayne Gretzky Drive because he did a vaccine commercial. Now, these are
I happen to really like the name Capilano Drive, and I think they should go back to it.
Sure. Anyways, British Columbia Health Minister Josie Osborne has announced a major revamp of its Safer Supply anti-addiction program, converting it to be witness-only model in which users are watched as they consume opioids they have been prescribed. It was a significant change to the end of the take-home model, and it would be difficult for some, but the move was designed to reduce criminal diversion of prescribed alternatives to illicit street drugs.
So we talked about this months ago. And it's funny because when people like us were talking about this months ago, we were called conspiracy theorists. Funny how that seems to go. And now it's not happening. You're crazy. It's happening, but we're going to put a stop to it. So what happened was you would go in and you'd be like, I want some crack. And they'd give you a bunch of whatever the fuck they give you. And then, but it's kind of like the crack you get on like wish.com or whatever. Like if you were gonna expect good crack, this is like the government crack. It's exactly what you would expect when you ask for crack from the government. And so then you would trade it for a smaller amount of whatever the good shit is. And then that government crack would get sold all across Canada. And this was a big thing. But they were like, no, fuck you. You're lying about it. Well, now they're saying actually it is happening, and we're gonna try and
we're gonna try and change that.
So rather than just giving the crackheads a bunch of crack and being like, so you're gonna go smoke this now, and they're like, oh yeah, totally, we're gonna smoke it. It's gonna be great, and then they walk out the door and they just trade it for better drugs. Now they're like, I'm gonna sit here. They're like a parent in the 70s. I'm gonna sit here and watch you while you smoke that whole pack.
Safety concerns on Vancouver's downtown east side are growing as seniors who live in the community say they have seen an increase in attacks recently. Gabriella Molnar is 93 years old and was walking back to her home on Alexander Street last month when she had a man struck her on the head in an unprovoked attack. And it seems to be not a lone incident. It's happening more and more.
Yeah, funny how when you have a whole bunch of crackheads around everything all the time, you also get more 93-year-old women being attacked.
You know, I love global warming. Today in Lloyd, I don't know about where you're at, too. It's beautiful outside. But February 18th, coldest place on the planet, not in Canada. I want to reiterate that. On the planet was
Watrous, Saskatchewan.
Minus 42 is colder than Antarctica. Or the Antarctic, sorry.
Yeah.
So you're
shout out to everybody in Watrous.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Co-vindication.
Co-vindication. I was hoping you were going to bring this up.
More than 500 studies on COVID-19 have been withdrawn due to bias, unreliable information, or unspecified reasons.
Yeah, so there's this place called Retraction Watch that basically just looks at scientific studies that get put out for timely political points and then get retracted later on because they're garbage. And they said that there's been quite a few about COVID-19 and vaccinations that are no longer available.
That was also a conspiracy theory not that long ago. And wouldn't you know, where there's smoke, there's fire. Goofy news, twos.
Let's get goofy.
New Brunswick driver gets a $4,600 fine for an accident that happened 65 years ago.
Also, one that he claims never even happened.
He's like, I don't remember an accident. Yeah.
He went to go renew his license, which he has been doing for the last 65 years, I might add.
Yes.
And they said, well, your license has been suspended until you pay this fine. And he's like, what the hell are you talking about? Well, you got in a car accident. And he's like, no, I didn't. And they said, yeah, you did in 1952 or whatever the fuck it was. And apparently it's a $4,600 fine from 1952. Like, is this just like compounding late fees at the library? What the hell is wrong with these people? In what world, in what possible universe, other than this idiot Canadian one, would it make sense to look at a 65-year-old accident from an 86-year-old man and say, you know what? The statute of limitations on murder is 25 years. But we've got some random fucking thing written out on parchment that we found.
Oh,
Jamie, stop calling me. I'm still on the show.
Pierre Puliev says Carney has been sloganeering.
Play it.
Oh, you play it. Yeah. You play it. I got no sound on this side.
God damn it.
I know. He's been sloganeering as he stands.
Well, I noticed that Mr. Carney uses a lot of slogans. He has been sloganeering his entire leadership campaign, laying out real concrete policy plans.
Now, lots of what Polyev has been saying has been really low-hanging fruit, common sense stuff, which is handy for him because it fits in nice slogans, like the one in front of him that says "fix the budget, axe the tax."
Which are all slogans.
The other thing, verb, the adjective, verb, the noun. Pardon me. Okay, this is what he's been doing, and he's like, "Yeah, well, that's all Mark Carney's doing." And you're like, "That's all any of you do." Any of you.
Correct. The new measures announced by this is BBC, by the government will be known as Ronan's Law, after a 16-year-old Ronan Kanda was murdered close to his home 3 years ago after being stabbed in the back and in the chest at a case of mistaken identity. The weapon used, a 22-inch sword, which the guy had ordered online using his mother's ID to pass security checks. And he'd also bought another 30 knives and machetes using the same method, using his mother's ID.
So here from Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of England or Britain or however the hell it works. I don't know. They're like trans country, and I don't understand how any of the stuff fits together. Ronan Kanda's brutal murder, a result of knives bought illegally online, should have never happened. Working with his family, my government promised the toughest crackdown yet on knife sales. And that's exactly what we will deliver. Canada is not a serious country, but they're having our conversation about gun control. They're having it about knives. You had Idris Elba from The Wire. What was his name with the big sword in the MCU? That fucking guy was going on and saying that maybe we should make sharp knives illegal. Like, what are you gonna look? I get the fact that in terms of food, Great Britain commits every sort of culinary fucking atrocity. Okay. But you got to be able to cut your food up with something.
I like Idris Elba.
So anyway,
he's a good actor.
Yeah, but all right. Well, now we got to get rid of all these guns. Okay, well now all the guns are gone. Now we got to get rid of all the knives. Like in 20 years, they're going to be talking about banning tuning forks and like carving forks and everything like that. And the only thing you're going to be allowed to have is a government issue spork.
Green Party leader says it took them 1.5 years to come up with their new logo. It's a green dot. It's literally a green dot too.
This is the Green Party's new logo.
Yeah. That's it. 1.5 years.
Well, I mean, like,
do we need to really?
It's hard to get. It's hard to get. Like, if they started off with a square, they had to do it by hand. Maybe I could see that, right? You know, you're sanding off the corners and one side's a little bit oblong, and then eventually you get it. Seriously, how fucking retarded are these people?
A 55-year-old woman has had both her hands. Lost both of her hands in a horrific shark attack while trying to take a selfie with the creature, which was nearly 2 meters long.
So she was in Turks and Caicos and said, "Oh, there's a 6-foot-long shark. I should go into this shallow water with this 6-foot-long shark."
You know, sometimes you just like you deserve what you get. Sometimes you just deserve what you get. It's like that's a terrible idea. That is a giant predator.
Okay, but also, like, I'm sure if you're that stupid, you also go vacationing with the selfie stick. You could have just held it out on the goddamn stick. This is almost kind of good news, because this person who is not named, not identified, only known as Canadian,
no hands,
without knowing for sure, I feel like this is the kind of person who would be the idiot clapping seal cheering for the Liberals right now, were it not for the fact that her hands just got eaten off by a fucking shark.
Here's Elon Musk Social Security ages. It says, according to the Social Security database, there are the numbers of the people in each age bucket with the death field set at false. Maybe Twilight is real and there are a lot of vampires collecting Social Security. If you scroll down, okay, at some point you're just like, I don't know, how many people 100 to 109 are still living? This says 4.7 million.
So it's a little over 20 million people total that are over 100 years old.
Right.
According to this.
And you go,
one person whose age is between 240 and 249, and one person whose age is between 360 and 369 years old. They're older than the fucking country they're getting Social Security checks from. This is amazing. Like, think about this. All right. Like, you know, you were talking about how you're having the conversation with your son about whether he should cheer for Team Canada or Team US, right? Imagine 20 years from now, you're going to hand down some aged documents and be like, son, it's time I brought you in on the family secret. Your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother, Jezebel Newman, is still alive, according to the government. And we get checks for her every month. And I need you to just keep this. We've had this P.O. box in Des Moines, Illinois for generations. Okay? And we've got the mail forwarding set up. So you gotta pay a few bucks every year to keep the mail forwarding going. And these checks will be
Just keep
yours.
coming.
Okay. And I got this from my dad, and he got it from his dad. And this is our family tradition. Some people like to hang wreaths around Christmas. Some people get excited about sporting events. We rob from the government.
Captain America Brave New World receives the lowest cinema score ever for an MCU film. This saddens me. I thought the preview of it looked half decent too. Have you seen it yet?
Fuck no. And I'm a guy who I didn't see every single Marvel movie in the theaters up to and including Endgame. There was 2 that I missed. One
Which
of them
2?
was Guardians of the Galaxy 2,
Okay.
and the other one was The Incredible Hulk. But I saw Avengers the one right before Endgame. The Avengers right before that.
Oh no.
No. But I saw that one in the theater twice, and I saw Winter Soldier in the theater twice. Okay, so it all averaged out. I basically saw every single MCU movie up to and including Endgame in the theater, and I haven't been back to see any of these. I didn't see. Now it's interesting the choice of pictures. They've got the Eternals, which sucked. They've got the Marvels, which I understand was absolutely fucking horrible, and Quantumania, which I understand was horrible. And it's basically saying that even when you put it up against these 3 absolutely shit movies, it's still worse. 2 Captain America movies ago, we had Civil War, or pardon me, we had The Winter Soldier, and Civil War was still pretty good, but we had The Winter Soldier.
I did go to Rotten Tomatoes because I was kind of curious. The tomato meter
says Infinity War. Yes, that was the one I saw. The other one I saw twice.
49% on the tomato meter, but 80% on people were rating it 4 out of 5. I mean, so I'm like kind of like, where does it actually sit?
You know what? Here's the thing: is that generally speaking,
I
the critic reviews are more generous than they should be, but also the only people going to see this at this point are the few remaining people who think that this type of shit is good.
That's not true. There's still people going. It's just, I agree with what you were saying after Endgame. After Endgame, you're like, that was well done. Boom.
Okay, I watched all of them. I watched Moon Knight. I watched Hawkeye. I watched Loki season 1. What If season 1. I watched all of the MCU shit right up until She-Hulk. And then I was like, that Ms. Marvel. And then I didn't watch that. And then She-Hulk came right afterwards. I saw like 2 episodes of that. And I'm like, I don't know when I'm coming back. And I am one of their biggest fans historically.
All right. Well, there you go. Female Secret Service, right in line with the old MCU not having a good go. Female Secret Service agent shoots herself in the leg while trying to holster gun. Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. Happy news. Show the video of Elon Musk with the giant chainsaw. Yeah.
So Javier Milei, who the president of Argentina, who campaigned on Afuera for like all the government departments and said he was going to take a chainsaw to government spending and then literally would bring chainsaws to his rallies when he was trying to get elected. He gifted Elon Musk with a big fancy ceremonial chainsaw at CPAC.
This is the chainsaw for bureaucracy. Chainsaw.
Okay,
you know what's funny?
I just saw this. I just saw this now.
You know what is funny is when he first gives it to him in the back room, you can tell Elon's trying to start it up, and it's just a ceremonial chainsaw, I assume. Yeah. And what does Elon do? He builds flamethrowers. So he wanted it to run, and it didn't run. I think he was a little disappointed in that.
Okay, check this out. I don't know if you can see this or not, but the pull handle on it is a pair of brass knuckles.
I don't know if I can see that.
I can see it on mine. I don't know. Go back and look at it later. You'll be able to tell.
Right.
I can't zoom in any further on this. But yeah, the pull handle's brass knuckles.
Okay, happy news. I don't know why this is in the happy news, but chance of a city killer asteroid 2024 smashing into Earth rises yet again to 3.1%. NASA report says NASA has increased the chances of an asteroid hitting Earth in 2032 to 1 in 32, or up 3.1% from 1 in 42 as reported in previous calculations.
This is an asteroid with a 3% chance of landing with enough energy to kill an entire city. As somebody who doesn't live in a city, I feel like there's no wrong answers.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. Community notes, twos, Mashup 146. What do you got for community notes this week?
Oh, well, the other happy news is that Frankie Muniz from Malcolm in the Middle, the Hollywood actor who started Malcolm in the Middle, is now a professional stock car racing driver, and he just got 10th at Daytona.
He got 10th at Daytona?
Yeah.
Oh, I did not see that.
Yeah, there he is.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I feel like that's pretty good, isn't it, folks?
Yeah, that's why it was in the happy news.
All right, well, there you go. Community notes. What do you got?
Okay, so there's a new, I find this to be incredibly interesting, and maybe it's niche, but Tristan Hopper from the New York Post, he's doing a new podcast called Canada Did What, post-media podcast that digs into the untold, surprising political stories of the last few decades with host Tristan Hopper. Now, there's so many weird, random stuff. Like, the goofy news didn't start when the mashup started. It's been going on forever.
For a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's been going on for a while. Leanne says she just texted you a community note, by the way. I don't know what it is.
All right. I'll take a look at that.
Here's the other one. So this is the follow-up. We finally got everybody's address from the contest winners. So they're going to go out basically in an hour. But this hat, the Ralph Klein, Alberta, and this absolute beauty of a hat, for anybody interested, Ralph Hats is the Twitter handle, and you can go to ralphhats.etsy.com to get one if you're so inclined. And the two winners from a couple weeks ago are going to get theirs in the mail shortly.
There you go. We got May 10th, 2025. Everybody knows this. Cornerstone Forum, Calgary, Alberta. We're going to have a list of people there, from speakers to just people in attendance, like Tamara Leach, Chris Barber, 222 minutes, Marty up north. Peter from today's show is going to be there. Jamie Sinclair is going to be there. Chuck Prodnick. You get the point. Get your tickets May 10th in Calgary, Alberta. Tomorrow, Prophet River has a Saturday online big open box vortex sale that opens at 10:30 a.m. Mountain Standard Time sharp. Make sure to use the promo code SMP. It gets you entered into their monthly $100 draw. I'm going to pull it up because I was telling Twos before we started, Vortex is like optics and a whole bunch of different things. So all the hunters, the sportsmen, et cetera,
bird watchers.
Here you go. Yeah, you got Diamondback HD binoculars regularly, $400 down at $261. You can go down to Defender Flip Cap Objective Lens, $44 regularly, $23. They got VP 3000 Viper HD 3000 laser rangefinder, normally $500, $600 essentially, $446. So you can get a whole bunch of savings. And what I was told by Ed is it's basically in the first 10 minutes, it's all sold. So if you want to get some cheap stuff, ProfitRiver.com is where you want to go. And on there, you can just click it. There's a banner that shows the sale, and this is all in there, and you can be on there tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. Then the Winter Chili Bowl, cornhole and table games. That is also, oh no, that's not tomorrow. That is Sunday, February 23rd. Chili in a bun, $5. Chili dog, chili dog sounds good. $4. A hot dog, $3 in the Payton Gym from 2 to 7 p.m. So Payton, Saskatchewan, the Winter Chili Bowl.
Yep. Just plan your trip because the ferry's closed this time of year.
It is.
Yeah. Lisa Ferguson, frozen nut studded tire dirt bike race tomorrow in Panoka County.
Ooh, that sounds
More
interesting
info
too.
can be found at Second Gears Club's social media.
And then I think I probably should bring up the fact that I'm going to be at the Injection of Truth Healing Humanity March 3rd. That's going to be interesting. There's a whole bunch of doctors that are going to be in attendance. And of course, you can buy tickets online. That's Monday, March 3rd, 6 p.m. in Calgary. So that is a whole lot of going on around us. Twos, anything else on Mashup 146?
That's about it, buddy. I think we got her covered.
Folks, want to thank you for tuning in this week. Once again, Twos, as always, we'll catch up to you next week. To everyone who's continues to tune in, make sure to share, like, subscribe, all those great things. And we will catch up to you next week.
Welcome to the Mashup.
Tell me whether I'm wrong or right. East or west, up or down, side to side. I sit to stand and fall to fly. Of all of my impulsive plans, pop and lock and salsa dances on demand. I follow leading off the map and stop the chatter, scream happily.
Welcome to the Mashup.
Yes, we are doing Ontario election coverage.
Welcome to the mashup.
Welcome to the Mashup.
February 27th, Mashup, Ontario live election coverage. I think is what Twos was going to say. Catch you guys next week.